Well, thank you so much for joining Thursday Thoughts. I am very excited to introduce Rachel Alvarez, who is the Associate Director of Public Relations at Sprinklr, a provider of enterprise customer experience management software for large companies like Nike, McDonald's, and Verizon. And in this role, she handles media relations, content development, crisis management, and executive thought leadership. So Rachel, if you just want to introduce yourself to the class, tell me who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your career background.
Sure, sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be speaking to all of you today. And a little bit about me, as Christie said, right now I work at Sprinklr managing media relations. Sprinklr is known as a social media management platform, although we do call ourselves a customer experience management platform, but what we do is manage different social handles and digital channels for large brands. And I've been at Sprinklr for almost 5 years. So I do help with media relations, which means dealing with reporters and influencers, sometimes analysts as well. I also help with content development for the blog, so blog guidelines, and occasionally I help with social as well. So if there's a social media crisis, or if there is content that we need to put out that helps promote a press release or promote any executives, I help manage that as well. And before Sprinklr, I was at Salesforce, which is another tech company, and I was managing product PR for them. And that was mainly a lot of content development, sometimes social. And before Salesforce, I was at a couple of different PR agencies managing PR for tech clients.
Awesome. Well, you have a lot of experience with tech companies, which I love. But you also have a background in print journalism. That's where you really wanted to get your start. So what changed, and how has your journalism background helped pave your career path, what it is today?
Sure. Yeah. So it's so funny. When I went into college, I thought writing is absolutely what I want to do. And I want to write for newspapers and I wanted to write for print newspapers. And of course, the world changes so quickly. I don't feel that old, but newspapers seem to be, not as popular anymore. And I needed to quickly shift. But the good thing about journalism is that even though it was print journalism, you still get the same skills that are very flexible for all different types of careers. So I would say, it was very easy, honestly, for me to go into a different field, and PR was a great fit because you need the backbone and foundation that journalism gives you. So you need the writing skills, you need the communication skills, and it was a great fit for PR.
And so talk about Sprinklr. So how do you really leverage what you're doing to empower social media marketers?
Yeah. So as we said before, Sprinklr is that one single platform that all large companies can use to manage their social handles. So for example, if you're a McDonald's, you have an Instagram handle, and you might have many different Instagram handles depending on the location. You'll have different Twitter handles, Facebook, I'm sure Reddit, a million different places where people are trying to talk to you and ask you questions and talk about you. And so what Sprinklr does is we put that all in one place, in one platform, so that you don't have to manually and natively log into the different types of platforms to engage with your customers, to answer their customer care concerns, to monitor a crisis, things like that. And McDonald's is one of our the case studies that we talk about a lot, because if you're a big all-day breakfast fan, Sprinklr is one of the reasons that McDonald's actually came out with all-day breakfast, because through Sprinklr, they were able to listen to all their customers and understand that, all-day breakfast is something that they're really asking for. And if they didn't have Sprinklr, they wouldn't have been able to really understand that in such a great way. And then they rolled out the campaign across Sprinklr. So when they launched all-day breakfast, they used Sprinklr to go back to every single person who ever said, I want all-day breakfast. And they said, here you go, we're announcing it, here it is, and here's a discount for you to get all-day breakfast. So yeah.
It's the perfect mold between automating your day-to-day activities, but also personalizing for the customers. And I love that it has
Right.
both of those aspects.
Right, exactly. And I think that's something I've learned a lot just through working at Sprinklr is that personalization and the individual engagement is key. We're trying to get brands to stop just broadcasting across all social channels the same message over and over again and reach out to individual customers as much as possible.
Absolutely. And PR, especially with your background, is such an important aspect. So why is social media so important to a public relations strategy?
I mean, I think it's underutilized for sure still, and people don't realize how crucial it is. I mean, you'll see these major companies that we work with, like even who are we talking to the other day? Toyota, for example. You would think they would have a huge social media team, but they don't. It's still very small teams. And I think that will change. I think that people are realizing it is critical to reaching your customers. That's what PR is for. It's to grow awareness of your company, right? That's the basis and foundation of PR. And that's exactly what social does. And so I think that it's really underutilized and it will grow.
And give me an example of how you've used social media from a PR standpoint to build relationships to help aid in your own job.
Yes. So every journalist is on social media. I don't know of one journalist who's not on Twitter. They all use it to get sources, to follow the news, to engage with people as well. And so I've used Twitter before to interact and engage with reporters. I DM them sometimes. If they need something quickly, sometimes they'll DM me and I will send them data that they're looking for or a quick quote that they're looking for because it's just easier and faster than email. They probably get so many emails and it gets lost, but when you DM someone, they see it right away. And so I definitely use that. I don't use Instagram as much, although I do have friends who work in the fashion industry, and they say that the reporters are on Instagram and they DM them on Instagram for some stories. So it's really interesting. I think it's replacing email in some cases, and we'll see more of that.
And really streamlining communications because you can have that one-to-one relationship, sort of like a quick text, but now on social.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And reporters most reporters honestly aren't annoyed by it. Whereas if you texted a reporter, they might think that's a little bit, oh, you're getting, into my personal space. Like, please don't do that. But DMing is seen as okay as of now. And they prefer that rather than, giving them a call.
Cool. So how has social media, on the other hand, heightened crisis management for PR professionals?
Yes. So we've definitely seen this firsthand at Sprinklr, and it's really tough. I think that social media is a double-edged sword, right? It gives people the freedom to, share their views, but at the same time, people can say whatever they want. And so you really have to be very careful when you are responding to people. And the biggest advice that I can give is just please listen and talk to as many people as possible internally before you engage externally. And that's something that I need to remind myself on a daily basis as well. But I think overall crisis management, again, is an underutilized aspect of social media, and that people need to do need to be on those platforms and listening to what customers are saying about your brand. And most companies aren't doing that, and they're missing a lot of issues that are out there because they're not listening.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes back to slow news in a way where maybe if you are an employee of a company, you just need to take a pause and just think about what you're going to say before posting it, sort of like in some situations for news.
Absolutely. And I think what we've also learned at Sprinklr is that people don't always know what your intent is behind your message. So when you do message someone, even if you have the best intentions, they don't know that, and they could potentially twist it in any way that they'd like. And so you have to know that people will use your words in any way. And so just be as careful as possible when you're posting publicly or even DMing someone.
Absolutely. And give me an example of a time you've actually had to step in and help social media teams.
Sure. So I think it happens honestly on a daily basis. When we have customers reaching out to us who might have questions about how to use our tool, I will go back to our product team. For example, we have people all the time saying, can I do this on Instagram? You know, is there this stories feature available? Am I able to schedule stories? Really just asking about how our platform works. And that happens all the time. And so our social media team doesn't have that product expertise. But we want to get back to the customer really quickly. So what they'll do is they'll send that along through Sprinklr to me, and then I directly send that through Sprinklr to the engineering team. They get me a quick response, then I send that back. But again, it's one of those things where, you know, the social media team wouldn't respond without getting the correct information from the right team.
So it seems like you sort of play the customer success role as well, doing PR and making sure the customer is happy.
Yes, and we actually have that as one of our PR KPIs is customer happiness score, because we see PR and customer happiness as being tied together. And I think I'm not recommending that every company should do that, because it is a slippery slope when you say, you know, customer happiness should be tied to what your PR program is doing. But we think if customers are happy and the sentiment is positive, that means that we're putting out good content, that we're engaging with them in the right way. And that goes hand in hand with social media and PR.
Absolutely. So we're learning this week about information and curation. So with that comes choosing credible sources to curate and information to choose from. So how do you go about choosing which publications to target for your public relations strategy and posting on social media, you know, from like a thought leadership standpoint even?
Sure. So the first step is knowing your audience and knowing your customer. So for Sprinklr, our customer is our social media managers, their CMOs, sometimes they're CEOs, community managers, and public relations professionals. So what you do is you say, okay, what do these people read? Do they read, you know, Fortune, Fast Company, Wall Street Journal? Is it the CMO section of the Wall Street Journal? And how can you be as specific as possible to targeting that exact audience? So that's the publication piece and the journalist piece. And then also, you know, on social, when you're doing paid, you want to make sure that you're reaching that exact audience, of course, with your paid promotions. So it's figuring out who your audience is first and then where they're going.
Great. And students are curating content on Medium this week. So have you used this platform in your career, and what success have you found on it, or maybe failures?
So I have posted on Medium before, but I actually find that a lot of journalists are increasingly posting on Medium, and not necessarily, you know, for the publication itself, but they might just be doing it for their own personal brand. And I think that the personal brand of journalists is becoming more important. And I'm seeing a lot of journalists almost, they're influencers now. And so targeting them on Medium is has been more important, because you're reaching them in a different way where they're showing their own, you know, interests, and so you can connect with them in that way. But I do think that Medium, I've seen a lot of and even influencers who aren't typical journalists, like they might not work for Fast Company, but they're really well known in the social media space just because they post so frequently on Medium or on YouTube social. Those people are really important to target too, and I would target them on Medium. So I definitely think Medium is huge.
And it's so easy these days just to stand up a blog and being able to curate the content there, where you can share your POV, but you don't necessarily have to be the person writing that. You can just share what you think about the topics of the week.
Right. And use that to plug it into your newsletter. I feel like every journalist now or influencer has a newsletter now, because it's so easy and it's something that they can monetize. And so I think that they're, you know, using the content from Medium in that too.
Okay, so this is the last part of the conversation where we talk about rapid questions. So I'm going to ask you a few
Mhm.
questions and just respond as fast as you'd like. So what's your favorite social media platform and why?
Instagram is my favorite, and it's because I love photography. I do it, for fun, but I also love following other photographers and my friends as well. And so it's the perfect platform for that.
And what's one thing you wish you knew before working in PR or even social media?
I think one thing is definitely how important personal engagement is. I really thought that, and I know this sounds, in hindsight, like, why would you even think that? But I really did think of social channels as just broadcast channels. Like, just post everything on there and you'll be fine and people will engage with it. And I just didn't realize how important it is to find those people and individually reach out to them, personalize your messages, and take the time to do that. And I think that's increasingly important.
And what advice do you have for students going into social media as a career or even PR as a career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely talk to as many people as possible in different fields. What you're doing now, bringing people in, is great. Don't be afraid to go into something that might not look interesting on the outside. I was never interested in technology. Basically, I thought that I wanted to go into sports and fitness and things like that, but I now love technology and it is the only place that I want to be. And so I think, give yourself the flexibility and space to maybe try something out that you might not think that you're interested in right away, because you could grow to love it.
Great advice. And what new social platform do you think will take off next?
I'm looking at Clubhouse. I mean, it just got some funding, right, and a huge valuation, I think. So I am looking at Clubhouse. I think it's really interesting and different, and not a lot of brands are on it. So I'm waiting. I know individuals are on it, and usually that's what happens, right? It gets a lot of individual people, and then brands follow. So I'm waiting to see that blow up, and I'm following that space.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us today for Thursday Thoughts.